Hi guys, my name's Rob, and today we're going to do a quick product review on a pair of wrist straps made by a company called Grip Power Pads. During this review, we're going to be going over the pros, the cons, and why I think these are some of the better wrist pads that you can get on the market. So the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, why do we need wrist straps? The main reason is they help us lift more weight. So instead of our grip failing, the wrist straps will help you hold onto the bar so that your muscles actually fail instead of your grip. So I'm going to start by talking about the negatives. The first is that they are actually very long. Because when you're wrapping it around the bar, sometimes it feels like it never ends. Like you keep on wrapping, and it can get a little annoying at times. By the same token, it's also nice to have that length sometimes, depending on what you're wrapping it around. If you're using fat grips, or depending on the type of bar, you might need that extra wrap. Also, because they're a little bit thicker, you need that extra length to be able to wrap it enough times where that it catches itself. So the length is both a pro and a con. So that's the first thing. The second hit I have on these, which I can't even really speak to, is how long they're going to last for. I just got these in the mail for right around Christmas time. And so far they're durable, but you can see a little bit of where it dips there. I don't know if you can see that. So that little dip there makes me wonder how durable they are. So far I don't see any signs of tearing, of ripping, that they're not going to last. So that's just one question I do have. So now on to the pros. The first pro I'd like to talk about is the width of these straps. The typical straps that you'll find, you typically run around about an inch and a half in width. And as you can see, these straps here have another about half inch on the typical straps you'd get. The reason I like the extra width is because you find that these thinner straps, not only they don't wrap quite as well, and they slip, they're also not quite as durable, and I also find that they're a lot harder on your wrist. You find all your pressure is put on a very narrow part of your wrist. With these bigger straps, what you'll find is the weight is more evenly distributed on your wrist, which makes them a lot more comfortable, and they're just a lot better they just feel a lot better when you have them on. On top of that, these straps also have a nice set of foam padding on here. I'm not sure if you can see the foam padding. And I've actually found that actually reduces the stress on my wrist a whole lot. It also doesn't leave a nice red mark, which is good. Unlike these other ones I used to use that were, like I said, more narrow and they didn't have the padding. There's also these ones I used to use, which were, again, more thick. However, as you can see, they didn't last quite as long. And without that padding, I always had red wrists. The next part I'd like to talk about is actually the writing that is on the strap. Now, you might not think much of it. You can see the other side doesn't. This is the side that actually wraps against the bar. But this side here has writing on it, and you can't tell, but it's actually grippy. It's like rubberized, which means that when you wrap it on the bar, it'll catch on itself on that grip, which means it doesn't slip, which is fantastic. Because otherwise, while you're lifting, if you let go for some reason, with a typical strap, they'll just unravel really quickly. But with these, you'll notice that it'll catch on itself as you're wrapping. I was actually really surprised at how well the grip writing actually held itself. It was really, really nice. The third and final pro that I'd like to talk about is really a fine, minute detail, but it's right here. I'm not sure if you see it says right on this one, and this one here says left. Now this might seem like a little minute detail that doesn't really matter, but when you're lifting and you're kind of in your zone in your workout, you don't want to be thinking about which wrist strap goes on which hand, which arm. And this just takes the confusion right out of it, which is fantastic. I mean, at first I thought it was kind of a little over the top. I mean, who cares? But really, I find myself referring to this all the time. Now I always know which one goes on which hand, which arm, and it's just a little minute detail that shows that they really put a lot of thought into these wrist straps. So you guys, in conclusion, these are actually some of the best wrist straps I've ever owned. I'm going to put a link in the description below on where you can get them. I picked them up on Amazon. They're around $30. But I highly recommend getting yourself a pair. Like I said, they're really the best of all three worlds. They're wide, they're thick, and they have extra padding, and so far they've been super, super durable. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Other than that, keep on raising the bar.